This is the Sony A6500, 24 megapixel APS-C size sensor, interchangeable E-mount lenses, a viewfinder, a touch panel LCD, full manual controls, shoots raw stills and 4K video, pretty much everything I want packed into a nicely compact body. At its price point, loved and bought the A6000 when it was introduced in 2014, like the A6300 when it debuted in 2016. The A6500 comes with some new features and a new price point, and this puts it in a price class with Sony full-frame models, and considering Sony's full-frame lenses might be your best choice here, it changes and challenges the full-frame APS-C decision point. If you'd like to see a detailed comparison between the A6300 and the A6500, use the link in the top right or in the description, where I've linked several related videos about the A6500 and its siblings. According to Sony, what's new is the touchscreen and in-body stabilization. More about those in a minute. For me, the real improvement addresses the A6300's most significant shortcoming: overheating. I was curious, so I tested side by side. Although the overheating icon appears at about the same time, the A6500 continues to record, at least twice as long as the A6300. A menu setting, Tab 6 Screen 2, enables this extension, which I'd leave on as my default. According to the help guide, the high setting allows a higher temperature, but may cause low temperature burns. A tripod is recommended, but after testing, I think that's an unnecessary warning. With the high setting, after several attempts in a 22 degrees Celsius room, I was able to continue shooting for the 62 minutes it took the internal battery to drain. Then with USB power, the 98 minutes until a 64 gigabit card filled up, and finally the 110 minutes until the USB power shut down. That is a most dramatic improvement over the A6300. As a result, I'm now able to shoot performances without panicking. The engineers get a huge thanks for this one. In high mode, the overheating icon, which appeared at 26 minutes and is still on screen 84 minutes later, is less a useful warning than a distraction. So it either needs to be recalibrated for high mode or optionally be removed altogether. Although slightly larger and heavier than its sibs, the family resemblance is clear. I'm enjoying the bigger and more contoured right hand grip, which keeps my fingers from blocking the AF illuminator. It remains small and light, nicely designed, with some challenged ergonomics. The screen is flush with the bottom, making it hard to swivel down on a tripod. And the SD card goes in backwards, making it hard to remove. The dual action control causes inadvertent mode switches. It would be nice to have two control dials for manual shooters. But there are some improvements. The viewfinder eye-cup is more secure. The custom buttons are better positioned, and there are now 3, with plenty of options to simplify access to my most used features. The touchscreen, which operates in both LCD, called Touch Panel, and the viewfinder, called Touch Pad, serves as a focus assist. These can be individually activated from the menu. Touch the screen to focus on an object, then press the shutter to snap. While shooting video, I can change focus by touch or dragging my finger, making a rack focus simple. It's a great aid for video. And touchscreen works even when an external monitor or recorder is connected, as long as you're in HD mode and the HDMI info display is off. When the screen is touched, the focus changes, and spot focus flashes on screen. When focus is achieved, the mode changes from AFC to manual. Touch the center button or the finger icon on screen to return to the previous focus mode. The touchpad area can be the whole, the right half, or right quarter of the screen, and it can be separately disabled in viewfinder mode. It works as detailed in the manual, but touch can't take photos or operate the menus, unlike most touch-enabled cameras, and that's disappointing. There are several other improvements and new features worth mentioning, like burst speed, stabilization, slow frame video rates, Bluetooth, and a new menu. The high-speed burst, shooting manual exposure and focus with fine JPEGs, rattles off 283 shots in 34 seconds, over 8 per second before it hits the buffer. There's a minor interruption to the display. Then there's High Plus, 30% faster. It goes for 255 shots in 23 seconds, better than 11 shots per second, but with a slower screen refresh. The downside of this endurance is the longer than average recovery time. Even with an SDXCU3 or V30 card, over a minute to clear the buffer. You can continue to shoot or use the fun menu, but the main menu is locked out. Sony's in-body 5-axis stabilization is quite wonderful, as these handheld screens illustrate. Just try using the expanded view manual focus without it. It's nearly hopeless. Stabilization works with Sony's optically stabilized lenses, but also provides stabilization for adapted third-party lenses. Of course, the proof is in the shooting. And I love blurred pedestrians, but of course the background shouldn't be blurred. Handheld, and I'm not the steadiest guy, with shutter priority and auto ISO, I shot at 1/15th, 1/10th, 1/6th, 1/4, and 1/2 second, which is 5 stops more than the 1/60th I feel is my usual, and was surprised. I tried 1 second and even there was lucky on a few shots. Video frame rates are found on the S and Q slow and quick menu and provide a variety of frame rates from 120 frames for slow motion to 1 frame per second for speeded up action. These recordings are HD, not 4K. Set the record rate, which I would have named the playback rate as it's the rate the video plays back, 24, 30, or 60 for the output, then set the recording rate to control the number of frames recorded per second. The combinations range from 5 times slow motion when record is set to 24 frame and rate to 120 frames. Although most record at 50 megabits, faster rates have lower bit rates, as low as 12 megabits when recording at 24/120. The other extreme is 60 times quick, when record 60 is matched with 1 frame. Incidentally, all of these modes are silent, and although some like 60 and 1 frame will record for longer than 2950, they won't record a file that's longer than 2950. For example, the 24 frame 120 rate stops recording at 6 minutes. The standard HD video recording also has a 120 frame rate and is not silent at a data rate of 100 megabits. It could be slowed to 1/5 when played at 24 frames, and when 100 is divided by 5, leaves a data rate of 20 megabits. However, the S&Q mode creates the effect in camera. Slowing down standard footage requires editing software with the slow feature. After setting the 2 parameters, activate S&Q from the Movie S&Q function, and like standard video recording, the 4 exposure modes are available. Bluetooth on tab 3 screen 2 connects the camera to a smartphone for GPS location information, which is saved with the photo. Activate by turning Bluetooth on and then pairing with the phone. Once paired, use Lock Info Link Set to connect and retrieve location data as well as time and time zone from the phone. The viewfinder is bright and clear. Press DISP to view the histogram or the horizontal level. For a higher refresh rate, use tab 2 screen 6 to move from the standard 60 frame refresh to 120. The LCD, which tilts up and down but doesn't swivel around, has its own customizations with one additional panel, the Viewfinder Complementary Data Screen. Easter egg here, press Fun to make this screen interactive. Let me quickly cover the basics of exposure, focus, and color. If you'd like a bit more detail, try my A6300 review. These features are very nearly identical. Quality. Fine is the default. I recommend extra fine or RAW. RAW and JPEG saves fine. RAW files are compressed 14-bit, 12 when using the silent shutter. There are 3 shutter options. The default, electronic front with 1 click, mechanical front with 2, or with electronic front on, silent, which is silent. To also suppress the focus beep, turn audio signals off. Now completely silent. Please use this information with good intentions. There are 5 meter modes selected from the Fun menu. There's standard multi-pattern matrix, center weighted, and spot with two options, standard and large, then entire screen and highlight, which sets exposure based on the brightest object. Just perfect for the Distillery Lightfest. Then again, sometimes you do want to blow out the highlights, like the candles at the Ravine Gold Medal Plates dinner. Incidentally, there are two ways to use the Fun menu: highlight and spin the control wheel, or highlight and press the center button. The former is easier, but only the latter sometimes provides the additional options like white balance custom set and leaves more of the scene visible for interactive adjustments. Good on-screen feedback for setting shutter and aperture, a meter in manual mode, and a histogram. The zebra setting, usually considered a video feature, is also a good exposure setting guide. Set to 100%, it alerts me when the exposure is over. Press the bottom of the control wheel for EV adjustments, a large 10-stop range. As the illustration in the bottom right shows, by default, the top dial sets the aperture, the control wheel shutter, ranging from bulb, available only in manual, to 1/4000th. So in this scene, we're in manual mode in the dark. And as long as we've turned down the lights, you can assign bright monitoring to a custom button. Then, when it's dark and you're in manual focus, press the button so you can see to focus. Really useful for long exposure at night. ISO 100 to 25600 with 3 extended range settings to 51.2. That high, they're grainy, mushy, and often have a color cast. There's multi-frame ISO, which combines several exposures into a single image. So let's see. This is ISO 51.2 straight, and under the same lighting, multi-frame auto. You decide. Turning the light up again slightly, auto ISO minimum and maximum can be set all the way to 51.2. The auto ISO triggering shutter speed can be set through the entire shutter speed range from 1/4000th to 30 seconds, or choose from standard, fast, faster, which prefers a faster shutter speed, or slower, slow for higher quality, lower ISO. Here, standard delivers a shutter speed of 1/80, ISO 12.8, faster 1/320, 51.2, slower 1/20 with 3200. This flexibility makes auto ISO extraordinarily powerful and flexible. In-body pop-up flash, guide number 6, and it tilts up to bounce. And the Sony proprietary multi-interface flash shoe, with the options you need to control it and wireless flashes. 3 stops of EV compensation up and down. Now, some of my screen captures in the following scenes have moire, which, regardless of the settings, appears on the HDMI output, but not on the A6500's LCD, or in the images. And it only appears in stills mode, not in video with the Super 35 aspect, either in HD or 4K recordings. An odd artifact. In addition to touch, the regular focus options are single, continuous, and automatic, which is single until it detects movement, manual, and dynamic manual, which allows manual adjustment after auto setting. For area, wide, zone, and an inflexible center spot. 3 sizes of flexible spot and expandable flexible in case the subject moves out of the spot. Lock on AF with expandable spot. Place the spot on the subject, press the shutter, and the focus follows the subject. I actually prefer center lock-on, found on Menu Tab 1 Screen 5. It's a little more clear about what it's following, or use touch to select the subject. This feature also works in video mode, and for quick access I assign it to a custom button, which makes it simpler to activate, even while recording. There's an additional option for video, Tab 2 Screen 2, to select standard or responsive when it's not reacting as quickly as I like. In general, focus is fast and accurate, as you can see by the reaction of the focus spots all across the screen, even in low light with a high ISO and a large aperture. Same coverage. Face Detect is also a focus mode, tab 1, screen 14, on with registered face priority and smile shutter. When the subject smiles, when the subject takes off their glasses and smiles. Yes. 8 faces can be saved and ranked for priority. You may have trouble registering faces with glasses. Last thing, and this works even with face detection off, press the center button to find and focus on the subject's eye. Or, for even more accuracy, use the focus magnifier, tab 1, screen 13. Press, select the spot, magnify, magnify again, and then focus on the exact spot. It's an option, also on screen 13, called AF in Focus Mag. I've assigned a custom button to the focus magnifier for quick access. There's a button to press and hold for manual focus. Customize it to toggle, my preference. The same button can optionally be customized for back focus. Adjusting focus in manual displays expanded view, in stills modes anyway. Position using the control dial, expand again by pressing the center button. I use that custom button to use this focus aid in video also, only one magnification in video mode. For white balance, you can set white balance to a preset, use degrees Kelvin, and use set to capture a white balance and save it to one of 3 custom settings, and make further adjustments 29 steps along the amber-blue axis, 57 along green-magenta. For occasions when low light levels tend to skew the scene to amber, use priority set auto white balance to white, or use ambience for the opposite effect. This image was taken with a custom white balance captured at 2800 degrees Kelvin. Then, with auto white balance standard, ambience, and white. These are useful settings to have, especially for food photos in minimally lit bistros, although I often use the white plate as a reference for a custom white balance, as I did at Ravine. The Creative Style menu provides color presets for a selection of scene types and image effects, which can be customized for contrast, saturation, and sharpness. Picture effects, which are not compatible with RAW, provide filters that range from interesting and useful to gimmicky and Can't be too hard on these, though. I do like watercolor, illustration, and HDR painting. Too gimmicky? We did burst, but other modes include 2, 5, and 10-second timers with 3 or 5 shots, as well as an extensive selection of exposure brackets, single and continuous, 0.3 to 3 EV, up to 9 images, also white balance and dynamic range brackets. There are no interval modes, although there is a downloadable app that offers time-lapse functionality. And I don't know, is Panorama a drive mode or a scene mode? Whatever, it gets its own mode dial position and remains the standard to judge others. Standard, wide, 4 directions. The A6500 shoots 4K video. No longer such an astounding feature. It shoots at 24 and 30 frame rates, 60 is not supported. The only aspect ratio is 16:9. The wider DCI cinema standard is not supported. Both NTSC and PAL are. The 24 frame mode is captioned as Super 35mm. On the sensor, this is nearly the same dimension as a Super 35mm motion picture frame, about 23 by 13mm, and it's a larger field of view than the 30 frame mode. Internal recordings are XAVCS, 8-bit, 422 color. The maximum data rate is 100 megabits, and that's for 24, 30, and the 120 frame HD mode. A U3 or V30 card is required for 4K and 120. Note that in HD, 24, 30, and 60 are all Super 35mm. However, for HD, I'd recommend shooting 4K and using editing software to downres. It offers both additional flexibility and higher quality. Wherever I shoot, under controlled situations and grab and run, the quality of the footage is outstanding. There are lots of settings and capabilities. I've posted a quick start video if that helps. All of the exposure, focus, and color settings work in video mode, although a few picture effects do not. And Sony offers one setting that's not available elsewhere, a shutter speed slower than the frame rate. just nice to have. And an auto slow shutter mode, which slows the shutter under low light conditions. Here in program mode, exposure isn't happy at 1/30th. Turning auto slow on sets 1/20th for an acceptable exposure. We've already looked at zebra for exposure, but there's also focus peaking for those who prefer that, although a mono monitor setting is not available. But there are a variety of marker settings, center crosshairs, aspect ratio guides, and 80 or 90% safety. Note that in 4K, the LCD screen is darker, and monitor brightness, tab 6 screen 1, with the super bright sunny weather setting is not available. Drat. Picture profiles, tab 1 screen 11, I'd add them to the fun menu if you're going to use them, contain multiple settings to adjust the camera's response to light and color. The 9 presets are samples. Navigate right to see the various subsettings, offering combinations and variations, numbering into the overwhelming. Sony's online help guide for creators provides few specifics, so there's a lot of trial and error to determine my favorite settings or the appropriate settings for a specific scene. But there's absolutely no need to use them. Video recording is of extraordinarily high quality without profiles. If you are mildly interested, use Profile 3 or 4 to look like video, 5 or 6 to look like cinema. 7, 8, and 9 are useful when the exposure range of the scene, usually an exterior like this shot of Toronto's old City Hall with a bright sky behind, looks either too bright with overexposed highlights or too dark with muddy shadows. But no one wants to see this washed out, colorless image, so it needs to be adjusted, graded, in editing. 7, 8, and 9 use S-Log 2 and 3, a response curve that can do a better job of capturing a wider range. They also introduce a lot of noise, particularly in the darkest part of the image. The minimum ISO with 7, 8, and 9 is 800. I find both 8 and 9 with S-Log too noisy. Exposure also becomes tricky, and both histogram and zebra will perform differently than you're used to. I would advise you to create a look in camera to the extent that it's possible. 8-bit recordings don't have a lot of range to make post-production adjustments. It's pro to have S-Log, but this is still a consumer camera. Incidentally, there's a monitor setting on tab 6 screen 1 that compensates for the S-Log gamma curves used in 7, 8, and 9, so they're better represented on screen. If the screen is washed out and colors look odd, check this setting. I've described profiles and gamma in more detail in other videos, but let me repeat a few things. With S-Log 2 and 3, a wider lighting latitude can be captured, as displayed on the DSC Lab Xyla chart. Basic profiles capture a range of about 7 or 8 stops. That's a range that, until HDR 4K screens with Rec 2020 become less expensive, it's about all our displays can handle. With S-Log 2, that range increases to 11 or 12, S-Log 3, 14 or 15. So now I can capture more range, but it has to be flattened in editing. There's a misconception that using profiles or S-Log automatically makes your footage look better. Sorry, no. And using it indoors, where the dynamic range is already less than 7 or 8 stops, will reduce quality. And before using these settings, shoot some tests. Try it out to see how it changes the scene and determine what the shot looks like once the color grading is done. The A6500 is subject to the bendy effects of a rolling shutter. It's noticeable when I do this, but I've never observed it in a shot. Sony provides the best support for external monitors and recorders, although I do wish the micro HDMI connector had a cable protector or was the larger mini size. The HDMI settings on tab 6 screen 4 sets the output resolution, toggles the info display, which is not available in 4K mode, turns timecode on, and activates the camera's record button as a trigger for an external recorder. Timecode options are here too. In counter mode, the screen shows elapsed time on the bottom left. TC mode shows the timecode. To record real time, use user bits, and on page 2, turn the user bit time on. Recording 24 frame on an external recorder like the Atomos Shogun seems as easy as selecting it from this menu. Sadly, no. First option is to use the 4K output select to HDMI only, 24 frame. That's what I'd recommend. To also record internally, change the record setting to memory card plus HDMI. The HDMI out switches based on Tab 2 Screen 1 record setting regardless of the HDMI settings. And in XAVCS HD, according to the Shogun, all record settings 60, 30, 24, and 120 are outputting 1080p 60. If you want 1080-24, change the HDMI resolution from auto to 2160-1080, and only then does the 2460 frame selection actually work. So change to 24. Should be dimmed out in other settings. Note that in 4K, the LCD goes black when recording starts. In HD, there's no display on the LCD if the info display is on. When it's turned off, both screens display and the touchscreen LCD works. Would be nice if it worked in 4K mode, even if only in the touchpad mode like the viewfinder. The menu is color-coded, with 6 tabs covering a total of 35 screens. Counting only the highest level, there are 153 selections, but many open sub-menus with their own lists. Sony's taken a lot of flack for the previously overly complicated menu. Here, it's nice to see that they're all organized, and although some inconsistencies remain, overall it's easier to find what I'm looking for. The reorganization of movie features is particularly welcome. With the addition of a Screen 1 of X indicator, not sure what value the dots at the bottom provide. What this complex menu does provide is a degree of functionality and flexibility that as a total package is not available elsewhere. Let me go through some of the highlights. The spot metering mode can be centered or linked to the focus point, a useful feature. The sensor cleaning feature that vibrates the camera to shake off dust. I have the feeling this will work better than previous versions, but if you do regularly change lenses, you'll likely also need a blower and a loupe. There are 3 custom buttons with a long list of available functions. And the function menu can also be extensively customized. If you eliminate the items in Screen 2, the menu collapses to a single row. I'm not a big memory settings fan. I'm switching too many things way too often while I'm shooting for a review. But with gloves on in the winter, I started to preset a couple of configurations before leaving the house. After making the adjustments I want, Tab 1 Screen 4 saves the setting. Review the settings by scrolling down. Positions 1 and 2 can be recalled from the mode dial, M1 to 4 from the menu, but only with the mode dial on 1 or 2. 1 and 2 are stored in the camera's internal memory, so are lost when you reset. M1 to 4 are stored on the memory card in the Sony folder, so can be saved and, I suppose, transferred to another 6500. Tethered shooting is available with Sony's free remote camera control app. Connect the camera to the computer's USB and then select to save images on the computer or both, JPEG, RAW, or both. And there's Wi-Fi for transferring images from the camera to a smartphone using Sony's free Play Memories app. The app also includes remote video shooting for vloggers who are otherwise missing the capability to swivel and flip the LCD to shoot from the front. After reviewing the A6300, I made a wish list of features that I'd like to have in the next version, all to do with video. After all, I'm pretty happy with the stills functionality. I'd hoped for faster video bit rates, higher bit depth, and better color. If not RAW, then at least 10-bit with 150 to 200 megabits, with a new card format if needed to really take advantage of S-Log, eliminating the 30-minute time limit, better battery life, a movie-specific fun menu, a custom memory setting for video, and a few little things like a headphone jack, HDMI cable clamp. But stop me if you've heard this. Well, even if they didn't deliver on those, there's a great deal that the 6300 and now the 6500 get right, especially for video. Support for external recorders like the Atomos Shogun is best in class. It's lovely to have these features in this category. And even with its limitations, the picture profiles and the S-Log gamma curves provide advanced functionality that's far above expectations in this group. Just a note on USB power, which is a very useful feature. While connected, both sources are used, which extends the life of the otherwise short-lived internal battery and reduces its heat output, delaying the appearance of the overheating icon. However, the internal battery still runs out before the external power is exhausted, extending the shooting time from about 60 minutes to over 100 minutes. Playback is Sony's afterthought. I think they're the only manufacturer not to offer an in-camera RAW to JPEG conversion. There is a capture a still from a video file function. But on the other hand, no other camera manufacturer offers downloadable apps. Now, I agree they're not the easiest to use, but they add interesting and useful capabilities. From the remote to star trails, they add a lot of niche functionality. Apps can be downloaded directly to the camera or using your computer from the Play Memories site. There are a few more caveats I didn't mention yet. While using digital zoom, not all meter modes are available, and picture effects are not compatible with RAW.
3 weeks in, I like the A6500 more than I expected to. If you can get past the price point, you're sure to enjoy this high-quality, feature-rich, extraordinarily customizable camera, great for stills, and with a near-pro video mode that invites comparison to more expensive cameras.